The moment the front door clicked shut, my entire world cracked open. I stood in my sister's living room, listening as the taxi idled for half a second and then pulled away from the curb. Brooke and her husband, Jared, were gone. 5 days, a Caribbean cruise, sun, ocean, overpriced drinks with tiny umbrellas. And me? I was here to babysit their daughter. I turned around with a smile already on my face, ready to ask Nola what she wanted to do first. Maybe we could bake cookies. Maybe watch one of those animated movies she liked. Maybe read together like we always did. Nola, I said lightly, what should we start with? But she didn't reach for her iPad. She didn't tap the screen to open the text-to-speech app. She just stood there, staring at me. There was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Not confusion, not shyness. Something sharp, focused, heavy, as if she was carrying a secret far too big for an 8-year-old body. And then my niece, the child I believed had been born mute, the little girl who hadn't made a single sound since she was a toddler, the child everyone said would never speak, opened her mouth. "Aunt Lisa, don't drink the tea Mom made." Her voice was clear, perfect, steady. She planned something bad. The blood in my veins turned to ice. The thermos in my hands suddenly felt heavier, like it had gained weight, like it was no longer just a container, but a threat. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. My niece, who I believed could not speak, had just spoken, and she was warning me that my own sister was trying to harm me. I need to rewind. At least 6 hours. Because if I don't explain how I got here, how I ended up standing in my sister's house realizing everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie, none of this will make sense. My name is Lisa Rains. I'm 32 years old. I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Columbus, Ohio. Thrilling, I know. While other people dream about adventure and romance, I dream about balanced spreadsheets and clean audits. My therapist says I use numbers to feel in control. She's probably right. That Saturday morning started like any other. Quiet apartment, coffee steaming in my favorite mug. No emails, no deadlines. For once, my mind wasn't racing. I was enjoying the peace when my phone rang. Caller ID, Brooke, my older sister. 6 years between us, though sometimes it felt like 60. Her voice was honey sweet when I answered. Too sweet. That should have been my first warning. Brooke only used that tone when she wanted something. "Lisa," she said warmly, "I have the biggest favor to ask." 5 minutes later, I had the full story. An anniversary cruise, 5 days, Caribbean, very romantic, very last minute. And suddenly, they needed someone to watch Nola. "Of course," I said automatically, because that's what I always said to Brooke. And the truth was, I loved my niece, genuinely. Even though communicating through an iPad could be exhausting, there was something special about Nola. She had these large, observant eyes that seemed to absorb everything around her. When I read to her, she'd lean against my shoulder. Like my voice was a safe place. Brooke had always told everyone that Nola was born with a rare neurological condition, diagnosed around age 3, something that affected her ability to speak, permanent, untreatable. I never questioned it. Why would I? She was my sister. Mothers know their children, and I wasn't even around much during Nola's early years. I'd taken a job in Chicago right after she was born. It was a good opportunity. I couldn't pass it up. I flew home for holidays. Occasional weekends. By the time Nola was 3, she was already silent. The story had already been written, and I believed it. I moved back to Ohio 2 years ago when our mom got sick. Cancer, the slow, merciless kind. I wanted to be close, to help. During those months, I spent more time with Nola, reading to her, sitting with her, just being there. Even without words, we built something real. Our dad had passed away 3 years before Mom. Heart disease, quiet man, steady, the kind who fixed things without making noise. When he died, it felt like the anchor of our family was gone. 14 months ago, Mom followed. She left behind a trust, About $1.2 million. Dollars. Their entire life savings, life insurance, everything. The terms were clear. Any major withdrawal required both Brooke's signature and mine. Mom was smart like that. She also left me the family home since Brooke already owned property. At the time, it felt fair. Now, I wonder if Mom knew something I didn't. That Saturday, I drove to Brooke's house around noon. Beautiful place, manicured lawn, the kind of home that looks perfect from the outside. Brooke opened the door and hugged me. That alone was strange. She wasn't a hugger. "You're a lifesaver," she said brightly. Jared was outside loading bags into a taxi. He barely acknowledged me, just a quick nod. He looked nervous, sweaty, twitchy. I didn't think much of it. Brooke walked me through the house as if I hadn't been there dozens of times before. Kitchen, living room, Nola's bedroom, TV remote. Then she opened the refrigerator and pulled out a large thermos with a yellow lid. "I made this for you," she said, pressing it into my hands. "Herbal tea. For stress? You look exhausted, Lisa." Something in her tone felt off, too insistent, but I smiled and thanked her. Because that's what I always did. The taxi honked. Another hug. Rushed goodbye. They were gone. I closed the front door, turned around, and found Nola standing there, staring at me like she was about to change everything. "Aunt Lisa," she said quietly, "don't drink the tea Mom made." My knees almost gave out. I placed the thermos on the counter like it was radioactive and slowly knelt in front of her. "Nola," I whispered. You can talk." She nodded. I always could. Mommy made me stop. The room tilted. "What do you mean she made you stop?" And that's when my 8-year-old niece told me a story that shattered my understanding of my family. Nola was never mute. She never had a neurological condition. That was a lie. When she was 3, she spoke like any other child, sang songs, asked questions, said, "I love you" at bedtime. Then one afternoon, everything changed. She came downstairs for juice and overheard her mother on the phone. Words she didn't fully understand, but some she did. "Aunt Lisa." Money, out of the picture. The next day, innocent and confused, she asked what "out of the picture" meant. Brooke's response was cold, violent, terrifying. "If you ever speak again," she told her, "something terrible will happen to your aunt. Your voice is dangerous." So Nola stopped talking. To protect me, 5 years of silence, 5 years of fear. I sat on that kitchen floor, crying, as my niece explained the sacrifice she'd made. And when I looked at the thermos again, something inside me hardened. Brooke thought she had 5 days. She was wrong. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Because the moment the word poison crossed my mind, I realized something terrifying. If Brooke planned to hurt me, she wouldn't stop just because I refused to drink her tea. She had already crossed a line, and people who cross that line don't suddenly grow a conscience. So I did what accountants do best. I calculated. I wiped my tears, stood up, and smiled at my niece like nothing had changed. "Thank you for telling me," I said softly. "You did the right thing." Nola shook her head. "Mommy listens." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "She put cameras, not in my room, but living room, kitchen." Of course she did. Brooke didn't just want control. She wanted surveillance. I glanced around the room, suddenly aware of every corner, every smoke detector, every decorative shelf. I couldn't see anything obvious, but that didn't mean they weren't there. "Okay," I said carefully. "We'll act normal, just like always." Nola nodded like a soldier receiving orders. That night, I poured the tea down the sink, slowly, letting water run so it wouldn't look suspicious if someone was watching remotely. Then I washed the thermos thoroughly and filled it with plain chamomile from my own stash. If Brooke checked the cameras, she'd see me drinking. I made sure of that. Then I did something else. I saved the thermos, unwashed, hidden, because if Brooke really planned to poison me, the residue would still be there. And residue tells stories. That night, after Nola fell asleep, I sat on the couch in the dark, phone glowing in my hands. I didn't Google poison. That would be stupid. Instead, I texted someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Dr. Evan Morales. We dated briefly in college. He went on to become a toxicologist. We broke up amicably, lost touch. But he once told me, half joking, "If you ever think someone poisoned you, call me before you call the cops." I typed carefully. "Hey, Evan, this is Lisa Rains. Long shot, but I need advice. Hypothetically, if someone suspected a drink had been tampered with, what would they do?" 3 minutes later, "Lisa? Wow. Hypothetically, you'd preserve the container and avoid contamination. Why?" My fingers shook as I replied, "Because I think someone wants me dead." The response came instantly. "I'm calling you." I stepped outside onto the porch. I told him everything, slowly, calmly, like I was describing a spreadsheet error, not my sister's murder plot. When I finished, there was silence. Then Evan said, very quietly, "Lisa, if this is real, you're in serious danger." "I know. You need proof, real proof, chemical analysis, and motive." "Motive I have," I said. "My parents' trust. My signature is required for large withdrawals." Another pause. "Jesus," he murmured. "Okay, I can help, but we have to be careful." The next morning, I drove Nola to school like nothing was wrong. On the way, she spoke softly from the back seat. "She plans it after cruise." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "How do you know?" "She talks when she thinks I don't understand." She said, "Accidents happen." I dropped Nola off, smiled at the teacher, waved like a normal aunt. Then I drove straight to Evan's lab. He didn't ask questions when I handed him the thermos sealed in a plastic bag. He didn't joke. He didn't smile. 2 days later, he called. His voice was tight. "Lisa, there's a compound in that thermos, colorless, odorless, easily disguised in herbal tea." "What does it do?" I asked. "It wouldn't kill you immediately. It causes organ failure over time. Liver first, then kidneys. Doctors would assume a genetic condition or alcohol-related damage." My legs nearly buckled. "So she wanted me to die slowly." "Yes," he said. "And it would look natural." I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat in my car and screamed. Not from fear, from rage. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The sudden concern. The hugs, the insistence on tea, the timing. Brooke didn't want a dramatic death. She wanted a quiet one. I wiped my face and opened my banking app. The trust account, recent activity, small withdrawals, frequent, testing limits. She was preparing, and then I saw it. A document request from 3 weeks ago. Power of attorney draft. She had tried to access it without me. Denied. That's when I understood the full plan. Step 1, weaken me. Step 2, get me diagnosed with something terminal. Step 3, convince me to sign control temporarily. Step 4, wait. She wasn't just trying to kill me. She was trying to erase me. That evening, I started my counterplan. First, I installed my own cameras. Second, I backed up every document related to the trust. Third, I visited a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The one who had drafted my mother's will. When I told him what was happening, his face darkened. "She always asked me to keep an eye on Brooke," he said quietly. That hurt more than anything else. Because it meant Mom knew. She just hoped she was wrong. We documented everything. Lab results, video recordings, financial records. Then I did the hardest thing. I pretended to get sick. I stopped eating much. I complained of nausea, fatigue, pain. I made sure to mention it during video calls. Brooke's face lit up with fake concern. "Oh no," she said. "You should see a doctor." "I will," I replied weakly. She smiled. That night, Nola climbed into bed beside me. "Are you really sick?" she whispered. "No," I said. "But we're close." "Close to what?" "Winning," she smiled. For the first time, she smiled without fear. The following morning, I woke up before sunrise. Nola was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the couch, flipping through one of her picture books. Her little fingers traced the edges of the pages as though she was memorizing every corner. I brewed coffee, trying to look exhausted but human. The kind of exhaustion that screams, I'm sick, but still functional enough for someone to underestimate me. Brooke called around 9 a.m., sunny voice as always. Lisa, how are you feeling? Really, I'm so worried. I coughed lightly. Oh, Brooke, barely hanging on. Might need to see a doctor soon. Her gasp was audible even through the speaker. Oh, Lisa, you mustn't wait. Nola is fine, right? Yes, she's fine, I said weakly, and then paused for dramatic effect. She's been so brave. I hope you're enjoying your cruise. The line went silent. Finally, she said, Of course, yes, it's lovely. I hung up, heart pounding with satisfaction. I knew she was already recalculating. Every small piece of information I gave her was bait, and she was biting. By noon, I had set the stage for the confrontation. Every document was copied, every video secured. Evan had confirmed the lab results. Poison. I had texted Kevin to prepare the law enforcement team. They were ready to move at a moment's notice. I turned to Nola. Ready for our big day? She nodded solemnly. Yes, Mommy can't hurt us now. We left for a local cafe to make it look casual. Then I called Brooke again. Lisa, how are you feeling now? Oh, still weak, I said, voice trembling slightly. I don't know if I can even walk to the door by myself. Her voice softened. Oh, Lisa, poor thing. I'll call Jared. He'll drive over after lunch. Perfect. Just as I expected. She couldn't resist controlling every move, even over a supposed sick sister. By 2 p.m., Brooke and Jared arrived. Their expressions were carefully calculated, casual concern, but the eyes betrayed impatience. Here she is, Brooke exclaimed, acting shocked when I opened the door in slow, feeble steps. Too weak to stand, I whispered, letting Nola peek from behind me. Don't worry, I won't be a bother. I could see the frustration in her eyes. Brooke wanted this to go smoothly. She wanted to get to the documents, the trust, the forged papers, but every second she delayed, she gave me time to play the next card. We sat in the living room. Brooke, ever so sweet, tried to control the conversation. Oh, you poor thing, like you need to rest more. Let me fetch you some tea. I let her reach for the thermos. My heart raced. I pretended to sip, then coughed. Carefully, theatrically. She didn't notice. Not that it mattered. The evidence was already secured. Finally, I asked casually, By the way, remember that tea you made for me last week? Brooke froze. For a second, the sweet mask faltered. Yes? Why? I smiled faintly. I had it tested. Funny story. It wasn't just chamomile. Her eyes widened, flicking to the thermos, then back to me. What do you mean? Evan's lab results, the videos, the financial records, they were all waiting. And Kevin had positioned the officers discreetly outside, ready. I leaned in closer. You tried to poison me. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Brooke's honeyed voice cracked. Lisa, no, you're imagining things. No, I said softly, letting calm authority cut through fear. I have evidence, lab results, documents, video recordings, and Nola told me everything. Nola, silent until now, stepped forward. Her little legs trembled, but her eyes were sharp and unyielding. Aunt Lisa, she told me to stop talking. She said my voice would hurt you. I've been quiet for 5 years to protect you. Brooke's face went white. For the first time in years, the mask shattered. The perfect mother, the golden child, gone. What? That's impossible, Brooke whispered, stepping back. I held Nola's hand tighter. Impossible for you, maybe. Not for us. At that exact moment, Kevin and 2 uniformed officers entered, walking slowly, deliberately, as if on stage. Brooke Whitford, one said, calm but authoritative. You're under arrest for attempted poisoning, fraud, forgery, and psychological abuse of a minor. Jared gasped. Brooke clutched at her chest, shocked, cornered, desperate. No, this is a misunderstanding, she screamed. The officers didn't flinch. Step away from the documents and come with us. For the first time, the control slipped completely from her hands. Her carefully built world collapsed in front of me and Nola. I watched as she was led out, yelling, flailing, pleading with anyone who would listen. But no one was listening. After Brooke and Jared were removed, I sat on the couch, letting my breath slow. Nola climbed onto my lap, hugging me tightly. "It's over," she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "It's over." Her voice, free, clear, unafraid, and I knew. For the first time in years, we were safe. Weeks later, in Franklin County Family Court, Nola spoke for herself. 8 years old, purple dress, steady voice. "I want to live with my Aunt Lisa," she said. "She listens to me. She makes good pancakes." The judge smiled. Custody was granted. Brooke faced charges and a plea deal. Trust funds were secured. Most of the stolen money recovered. Nola began therapy to process the trauma. She laughed, she sang, she chattered endlessly. Her voice no longer held fear. It held joy. And for the first time, I felt like we had won. Not just justice, but life. Because some victories aren't just about revenge. They're about reclaiming what's been stolen. Safety, trust, and a voice. Nola's voice. Our life, our story,